Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of Sermon and Song with Blue in the Face. I'm Chris Catalano and I'm going to talk to you about all things love of God until I'm, well, blue in the face. Today's topic, blessed and broken. When I was in college, I remember seeing a cartoon on a bulletin board outside of one of the campus ministry offices. It was a picture of some of the apostles in a boat, and below it was a caption that said, "Sure, some miracle. It's been 2 months since the multiplication of the loaves and the fish, and we're still eating leftovers." In reality, the multiplication of the loaves and the fish was one of the most dynamic stories we encounter in the Gospels. In fact, it happens twice in the Gospel of Matthew, and also appears in each of the other Gospel accounts of Mark, Luke, and John. And because it's such a powerful story, it seems to endure in all generations. Remember the story? It goes like this. When Jesus heard of the death of John the Baptist, he withdrew in a boat to a deserted place by himself. The crowds heard of this and followed him on foot from their towns. When he disembarked and saw the vast crowd, his heart was moved with pity for them, and he cured their sick. When it was evening, the disciples approached him and said, "This is a deserted place, and it is already late. Dismiss the crowds so that they can go to the villages and buy food for themselves." Jesus said to them, "There is no need for them to go away. Give them some food yourselves." But they said to him, 5 loaves and 2 fish are all we have." Then he said, "Bring them here to me." And he ordered the crowds to sit down on the grass. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he said the blessing, broke the loaves, and gave them to the disciples, who in turn gave them to the crowds. They all ate and were satisfied, and they picked up the fragments left over, 12 wicker baskets full. Those who ate were about 5,000 men, not counting women and children. This gospel story, among many other things, is filled with 5 basic elements: foreshadowing, pity and healing, a call to service, miracle, and fulfillment. So let's very briefly take each of those 5 elements. First, foreshadowing. Jesus multiplying and distributing the loaves and the fish would be a direct foreshadowing of his giving his own body and blood in the Eucharist, bread that would be broken and shared for the rest of all time. It would be the quintessential gift that keeps on giving. The second element, pity and healing. It says Jesus' heart was moved with pity for them, and he cured their sick. He couldn't just let them languish. In his love and compassion, he saw a basic human need and had to help. That's the way we're called to be too, which leads me to number 3, a call to service. The disciples wanted to dismiss the crowds, but Jesus tells them and us, you feed them. He'll help them and us, of course, but our being a part of the life of Christ and being fed by Jesus' Eucharist includes a mandate for each of us to feed others. Give them something to eat yourselves. Don't just leave it to someone else. You do it. The 4th element in the gospel, miracle. Jesus asks them to bring him the loaves and the fish. He said the blessing, broke the loaves, and gave them to the disciples, who distribute them to the crowds. How he longs to take our lives and multiply our offering for his hungry world. And finally, number 5, fulfillment. It says that all ate and were satisfied. Not just some, all. The leftovers filled 12 baskets. Now 12 is a very important biblical number meant to represent fullness and completeness. 12 apostles, 12 tribes of Israel, etc. So abundance is what was left over after all had been fed and were satisfied. It says that 5,000 ate, not counting women and children. In other words, in spite of their biblical time period way of counting that didn't account for women and children as part of the total, we're told the impact of the miracle of feeding was even greater than that. Maybe they didn't count children, because if they ate like my son does, there wouldn't have been any leftovers. But here we see that Jesus blesses us, not just measure for measure, but in great abundance. So are we called to do for others. All right, so what about us? We're reminded of the immense power of Jesus to bless and multiply the offering of anything we put in his hands. What are the things we can put in his hands? When we place love in his hands, Jesus blesses and multiplies it and creates peace in great abundance. When we place patience in his hands, Jesus creates great endurance. When we place our fear and worry in his hands, Jesus creates calm within. When we place our heavy crosses in his hands, Jesus creates tremendous strength. And when we place our service in his hands, Jesus creates an abundance of his presence in the world. How much more can Jesus do with our entire lives when we place them in his hands? How much more can he multiply us, all our efforts, and all the good we offer him when we allow his hands to shape us? And how much more can we become the nourishment and the bread of life for the world when we allow Jesus to simply and miraculously multiply our lives? By ourselves, we can do little. With God, we can do all. We are all called to be Christ's miracle of abundance in his hungry world that needs to be fed. Today we're reminded that all of us are meant to be blessed and broken, to be placed in the hands of the Lord Jesus, so that he can multiply the offering of our lives to him. This will enable us to be abundantly shared with the world as the bread of life that feeds his hungry world with mercy, forgiveness, humility, meekness and patience, and above all, love. This is a song I wrote called "Make of My Life a True Offering." May this prayer lead you to a deeper surrender of your entire life into the hands of Christ, who can and will bless, break open, and share your humble offering with the world.
Wherever I go, help me to walk in your light.